It was sick. Let's blast off and let's get to the freaking news, baby. Yeah, it was dope seeing everybody. It made me very happy. Everyone was awesome. I love doing shit like that. I love doing normie content like that. You know what I mean? I see with RDC and AMP. I know it's two different audiences, but it was dope. I mean, I like everyone in all of those in you know, all those groups. They're all great. Anyway, let's blast off. What are we gonna talk about? We have so much. You still have the wrong title on the DreamCon VOD. I don't know how to fix that, so I don't know what you want me to do there. But in any case, let's get it started. We're an hour and 30 in already. Republicans are weird. Is still weird. Kamala's chances look much better now. Trump says this is the last election you have to vote in. Lebanon tensions high after strike. Venezuelan elections and insane Israel protests. Pro R-word protests. Push.tv / Hasanabi. Yeah, we're gonna do John Oliver too. John Oliver had an insane pop-off, which is not unexpected if you know anything about John Oliver. It's you know, it makes sense. The media just brushed Trump's words off and didn't push back against the Republicans or broadcast. Yeah, I don't know why, but they'll talk about it eventually because like everyone on TikTok was talking about it. And I think that like that usually does end up changing political discourse a little bit. Did the Macia send a playlist or no? Steven Crowder's on a new level of racism, which is like kind of funny because it's not the new level of racism. It's I think the old level of racism. But oh, he did. Here we go. Let's blast off. Oh, and the SCOTUS stuff. Oh yeah, fuck. There's a lot to talk about, man. There's so much to talk about. But we'll get to it. Israeli January 6th. Yeah, they're doing crazy shit out there. But we're not going to start off with that. Obviously, we'll start off with a little bit of domestic politics, and then we'll get to it. Elon posted an AI Kamala ad, but
I'm gonna bring in
here. Let's start with Harris topping Trump in favorability ratings. Yes, I put the Venezuela elections in the fucking title. Shut the fuck up, and also in the blast off. Oh my God, foreign policy leftists are so fucking annoying. They're like this all the time. Yes, dude. Yes. Don't worry. I'm gonna get to your fucking Venezuelan election stories as well. Probably not gonna like it either. Already mad? I know. Immediately the fucking attitude is switched off. We were having fun, and immediately, yeah, we'll do the Uruguay fan. New anti-Vance attack ad. Hey man, we just sat through an hour of parasocialism. Leave us foreign policy nerds alone. No, I will not. Okay, because I already mentioned that I'm gonna fucking talk about it, and you guys are being fucking annoying and reiterating it over and over again. Okay, Jesus Christ. When will you cover Venezuela instead of talking about nothing? Okay. Okay, dude. Here, take a week off. Okay? Take a fucking week off. This is a smart move from the Harris campaign as well. She says she's going to attend the debate, whether Trump is there or not. Oh, last night I did the sixth iteration of this. Murat every year takes a photo of me holding up a cake, and it's 6 years in the running, and he'll post the photo. He'll take a photo of it and then put the photo in the cake of me holding the cake. We did this year's version of that. This was the cake from last year, or the photo of me from last year in the cake. Venezuela is not in the title of the blast off, to be fair. What is this? What is that? You motherfuckers actually don't know how to read. Okay? A lot of you just don't know how to read. A lot of you need to learn how to read the room, and some of you need to just learn how to read in general. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, this was real-time radicalization after meeting like the average Israeli. That was really fun. I think for me in particular, I saw this clip. This is a perfect demonstration of like how much Israelis just like negatively polarize people towards their own cause. Okay. It's just great. Anyway, let's start with Harris topping Trump in favorability ratings and also in the latest polls. in many key states. I'm going to pee real quick.
And our political director and Washington bureau chief, Rick Klein, to break down the latest polls for us. Good morning to you, Rick.
Yeah, good morning, Robin. As Rachel said, this is an entirely different race than it was just a week ago. And one thing is for certain, it is close. We've had 4 major polls come out just since Joe Biden left the race and endorsed Harris. You have anything from a Harris +2 to a Trump +3, basically a tied race, all within the margin of error. We've also gotten some initial battleground state polling that's encouraging for Democrats, a tie in Pennsylvania, Trump up by just a single point in Wisconsin. That's better than Joe Biden was doing in both of those states. He was trailing in the 538 polling average right before he left the race. And it has been quite a honeymoon for Vice President Harris. Just in the space of a week. So a week ago, 35% of the country saw her favorably. Now it is up to 43. That includes a big jump among independents. She is now the very rare politician viewed more favorably than unfavorably, at least for the moment. On the other side, we've seen kind of the opposite happen for Donald Trump. Coming out of his convention and that assassination attempt, we talked last week, he had got to a 4-year high in favorability of 40%. Now it's down to the mid-30s, back where it's been for a long time. And JD Vance, this has not been a good debut week for him. The number of people who view him unfavorably jumped by 8 points in the space of a week. Look at that gap, 15 points underwater overall, Robin.
And overall, Rick, it does appear that with the voters, that they're more pleased with this current matchup than they were with the rematch with Biden and Trump.
Yeah, we've seen a big shift in that, Robin. Just a week ago, 14% of the country said they were unfavorably inclined to support either one of the candidates. They were.
JD Vance and Ron DeSantis are cut from the same cloth. It's the Sugar Man cloth. And it's so funny that that is like supposed to be the future of the Republican Party, which is like a technocratic approach to Donald Trump's policy agenda, which is basically just like post hoc pieced together after Donald Trump says something, not realizing that like Donald Trump carries his base in a cult-like fashion, and it's not actually the sound policy making that is the reason why people like him. And it's a complete misread from the Republican Party. This is something that I've mentioned a bunch of times. Republicans don't realize that their agenda is just genuinely reprehensible and that people don't like it if you're just like a nerdy guy who is like being nerdy about your racism or being nerdy about your sexism. Like a little bit of like racism and sexism obviously plays well to the base, right? But you can't go beyond. You can't just like deliver detailed analysis in the form of scientific racism to try to justify your belief system, right? And I think that they are leaning into that because it's a genuine misread. I think that they just like bought Twitter. Elon bought Twitter, and they just thought that they could like manipulate people into thinking this way. They thought that, you know, they were genuinely popular, not realizing that like all of the policies that they've pushed for are not necessarily things that people are desperately demanding. Like their base of support is not desperately demanding that you, I don't know, fucking dunk on a bunch of like random trans teenagers. Like most people just don't give a shit. You know what I mean? That's not a real thing that people are like desperate for, you know? Like even in the Republican Party, no one is like, oh yeah, I can't wait for penis inspection day in schools, dog. Like I love that shit. That's weird. That's just gross. Why the fuck do you care about this so much? And I think that they're just going to keep doing that, even though that exact mentality led to a awful, disastrous 2022 midterm outcome for them. And honestly, like the fact that the Republicans, or the fact that the Trump campaign thinking that they were going to still run against Joe Biden went with like an easy base pick with JD Vance, even though it was like just an awful choice overall, is a clear-cut indication that they are too far gone and too lost in the sauce to change course, change trajectory, change their messaging. I've said this before. I've said this time and time again. I said this in 2022. I said this on multiple different occasions for the past couple of years now, that the Republicans personally forgot how to run in a post-Trump world. They forgot how to run like good campaigns. They forgot how to appeal to normal people, and have mistaken their own success in state legislatures for genuine popular momentum and broad support for some of their most violent policy agendas. And it's really weird. They're just getting really fucking weird with it. And it's not just me saying like, oh, Republicans are so fascist. Like, they are literally just leaning into that. And I don't think they understand that, like, there is a level of how tapped in the average normal, possible Republican Party voter is, and how grossed out they will be when they constantly see like, America is run by cat ladies who don't have children. Like, that's not gonna work, man. That's weird. Like, you're just fucking weird. I don't know how else to describe it.
These 18 states.
This is a Vox video from 6 months ago that explains how they're doing that. Okay, we'll look at it in a little bit. And it is odd because, like, JD Vance and Ron DeSantis are so similar on that front. JD Vance and Ron DeSantis are so similar on that front in the way that they are leaning into Trump's culture war narratives, but actually trying to push policy. If you remember, I talked about Little Rhonda quite a bit when he was chosen as the pick to replace Donald Trump by the Republican Party. Establishment Republicans thought that Establishment Republicans thought that Donald Trump was too volatile and potentially was going to be poison for the broader electorate. And at the time I said, in 2022, I said two things. Either they continue leaning into this weird shit and they lose the elections going forward, or they successfully radicalize a large enough base of support beyond the MAGA cult into being just as insane, into being just as like genuinely, openly mentally ill. If you remember at the time I said, like, either people are going to become like transvestigators across the board, like every Republican that would otherwise be living in like the suburbs with like a real job or whatever is going to become like this Matt Walsh style transvestigator and like have their brains absolutely get broken by this kind of 24/7 news cycle, like constantly pumping out this fucking narrative over and over again. Or they're going to negatively polarize towards that sort of thing and either stay at home, not vote, or vote for the Democratic Party, right? And I think it seems to me right now that the Republican base of support is still kind of crumbling. Like, I don't think they've picked up additional people that are brain rotted, or at least in enough numbers as the people that they still hemorrhaged from the base of support. Okay? You feel me? For those of you who don't know, when you get to the transvestigation stage, I've said this quite a bit as well. There is like a level of brain rot that everybody has. Earthquake? I didn't even feel it. What the fuck? In Simi Valley? It must have been a real small one. You know what will really help? A middle ground video. Okay. We need to be careful about roasting JD before the Ohio ballot date, or else Trump might replace him 10 days ago. Dude, that would be chaos. Are you kidding me? If Trump swapped out JD Vance right now, that would look so disordered. Like, I think he's locked in. He has to be. Just like some of you are locked into debating me at the top of the hour so you can serve the 3-minute ad break, Trump is basically destined not to see a 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour, but instead destined to run this ticket with JD Vance by his side, right? Apparently Elon Musk and other billionaires from that group and his son told him to pick JD Vance. They fucked him over. Yeah. Donald Trump Jr. is plays a big role in this as well. But subscribing at the top of the hour will play a big role in this for you if you no longer want to see the ads at the top of the hour. Like I said, for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime, you too can subscribe at the top of the hour. Or maybe you can get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Here's a 3-minute ad break now. May Poontang, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. And Daily Donut, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. It's kind of wild. It's kind of breaking my brain to watch Democrats' strategy shift from when they go low, we go high, to Republicans are a bunch of weird pedophiles in the span of like 3 weeks. Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's awesome. It's smart. It's fucking good. Ryan's brain is breaking because like it's good instincts, and Democrats usually never do that. I said this since day one. I've been a fucking big time advocate for this since day fucking one. This is literally what they should be saying since 2022. Okay, they should have been running this before 2022, but it's correct. Where is it? I mean, I posted about this as well. Let me see if I can find it. I think it was after Walt said something too. Yeah, I mean, look, I said going for the weird vote. Americans with children should face the consequences of the reality. Where the fuck is Waltz? Yeah, this rhetoric is correct and will win over lots of people. Republicans have objectively become a weirdo party. They're super focused on random groups of people that aren't doing harm to anyone. They're too sweaty about it, too moralizing, too online. It cost them big wins in 2022. And I stand by that. I stand by that. About the vibe shift, I watched and read about 24 focus groups in the last 10 days, and overwhelmingly everyone knows Trump. And either you love him without reservation or feel ick about him, no in between. Almost all swing voters are open to her now, and everyone wants to see Kamala, what Kamala can do. They all give her a clean slate / break from Biden. Yeah. When you were calling the months in advance, did you think Vance would be this bad? I mean, I didn't. I said he was one of the worst picks he could have gone with. Yes. For all of the reasons that are in full display. I just didn't know how negatively people would respond to him. But yeah, no, this is precisely the reason why I said he's a fucking horrible pick. A lot of people immediately go, oh, but like he's more competent than Trump. He's going to be scarier. It's like, no, dude, no. He was less popular in his state. Guys, when you're picking for a VP, why the fuck do you go to a lock like Ohio? Ohio is a red lock at this point. It's no longer a fucking swing state. Okay? Ohio was a red lock. And not only was Ohio a red lock, bro, get someone to make a comp of you predicting things like swapping Biden out being good and show the DNC how good your political instincts are. I don't think the DNC gives a fuck about how good my political instincts are. Let's be real. Because, you know, if it were up to me, I'd swap out a lot more. But like I told you guys, a guy like JD Vance that is less popular than Donald Trump in the state of Ohio is a ridiculous pick to begin with. Like, Donald Trump outperformed JD Vance in the state of Ohio, okay, by 3 points. Not only that, but also JD Vance was on a ballot with the fucking governor, okay, of Ohio. The governor of Ohio is a much more moderate Republican. Red states oftentimes will have, like states in general in the gubernatorial race only care about who the person is. Party affiliation goes out the window. But the governor of Ohio is a significantly more moderate figure in the Republican Party across the board. And also, in general, he was like significantly more moderate than JD Vance. Okay? He outperformed JD Vance on that same ballot by 20 points. 20 points. Was it a different ballot? I thought it was on the same one. I might be remembering it differently. The wine is barely moderate. Dude, for the modern Republican Party, the wine, especially with like any red governor in a red state that did some kind of fucking, some kind of like COVID restrictions is moderate. Any governor in a fucking red ass state that isn't like as aggro as like punishing women for getting abortions is going to be considered a moderate. Okay? I thought it was on the same ballot. So overall, the point is not that like Trump should have picked the wine as his VP, by the way. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just using that juxtaposition to show you how bad of a pick JD Vance was, even in the state of Ohio, a state that you don't need to like pick up any additional support from anyway. That's why this pick was ass. David Sachs, Elon Musk, and Tucker Carlson. With the exception of Tucker Carlson, listening to David Sachs, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump Jr. is the dumbest fucking thing you can do. I'll find the clips where you 100% said if the Republicans lean on this trans hate, they're going to come across weird to the average voter. Yeah. A compilation of your locks. Imagine if Metal Gear Solid 3 looked like that. Look at this fucking socialist wearing a... Okay, these are silly locks. These aren't like... I don't think these aren't like political things that I've mentioned. Anyway, it looks like they didn't pick JD to win the election, but the lockdown and MAGA future, none of the reasons listed were to help win Ohio. Yeah, but you don't understand. There is no fucking MAGA future with JD Vance either. Okay? I think the only real reason for JD Vance was he's the bag man, as someone in the chat also correctly pointed out. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, he brings in tech bro support. He brings in the big bag, a big old bag from a lot of right-wing VC funded, VC backed Silicon Valley weirdos and losers. Okay? And that's it. Like, and I think it was dumb. And even Bergam would have been better, honestly. But yeah, the fucking MAGA supporters or weird narrative is solid. Like, it's because they are, and they should be called weird. Because like when you present them as like a genuine threat to American democracy, you're giving them, I mean, it's not untrue, but you're giving them too much credit, and that actually plays solidly to their base. But if you actually humiliate them, you cut away on that narrative a little bit that they're big, strong, scary guys. Because they can always run on that and be like, oh, they're just afraid because we're going to do great things for America and we're going to be owning the libs. But when they're the ones getting fucking owned for being humiliated on the timeline and being humiliated in general, all of a sudden, some of the normies see that and they're like, I don't know if I want to be responding to this. Like, I don't want to be associated with this shit, which is something that I've done for years and years. I mean, this is a big principle. This is why I do Hogwatch. You feel me? Like, I love that I love that these guys are letting their fucking freak flags fly on the timeline and being associated with this image that they're fucking insane because they objectively are. Okay? Look at that. Like, 4G Auto Blow is legitimately like a gross, weird person. Okay? Like, the Republican Party used to uphold this image of like elitism and all this shit. And now they got dudes with face tats. That image is edited. Bro, he does have a Trump blow up though. I don't know if is that actually edited? He literally does have a Trump blow up doll. And he also does look that way. Like, that part is not edited at all. So you feel that this is a bit reminiscent of how liberals behave towards conservatives in 2016 that it might backfire? No. In 2016, liberals behave towards conservatives as not as though they were like weird and gross freaks, but instead that they were like I mean, they were right, by the way. Liberals consistently talked about how, Trump would be awful, and they talked about Trump quite a bit, to a degree that gave him a lot of play, but Donald Trump had no track record that you could point to. And Donald Trump was significantly more moderate on a lot of issues in 2016. Liberals cared about the decorum and how uncivil the Republicans were. The Republican Party at that point was still, the last time the Republican had ran in that situation was fucking Mitt Romney. A Mitt Romney to Donald Trump swap out was obviously genuinely changing the trajectory of the Republican Party, but people still thought about the Republicans as like, there was still enough people in the base, the normal Republicans that live in the fucking suburbs and shit, that thought the Republican Party was the old Republican Party. They were still gross, violent weirdos overall, but they hadn't gotten this gross on, in front of a broader audience. And also, Trump did not have the disadvantage of having run and successfully won the presidency and been the president for 4 fucking years. Everybody knows what it's like to live under a Trump administration. People don't like the way that they felt under the Trump administration. Okay? Maybe some people have like rose-colored glasses in the way that they look back at that. There's always like a nostalgia component. Maybe they remember the stimmies that they got, right? Some people definitely remember the stimmies that they got, and the stimmies were good. It's never bad, right? It's never fucking bad to give money to people. People love that shit. Biden is live. Is he? Is he alive? Where is he live from, dude? Oh, he's in Austin? Damn, I should have stayed. I should have stuck around to see the GOAT in action. I mean, it's going to be boring as fuck. I don't really care about President Biden delivering remarks and commemorates the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act. Like, I don't really care what he has to say there, but in any case, let's continue on with this.
Where you call them the double haters. Now that number is cut in half. And check this out. The enthusiasm gap that Democrats have worried about, at least for now, entirely erased. Democrats enthusiastic about Kamala Harris's candidacy, just like Republicans are for Trump. And this is a striking number. 49% of independents say they are enthusiastic about Kamala Harris. Compare that number to Trump's, and you see how this race has been turned on its head, Robin.
All right, Rick, our thanks to you.
Here in the U.S., there are new signs of strength for the Kamala Harris presidential campaign, including new poll numbers and a growing financial haul. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump is turning up the heat on her with a series of personal attacks. Nancy Cordes is at the White House. Nancy, tell us more.
Good morning, Michelle. The Harris campaign says it brought in $200 million in the first week of her candidacy. That is a record. It's also touting more than 170,000 new volunteers. Now, the campaign says that this is a sign of pent-up interest in the race as the party converges around a new message about the Republican nominees, arguing they're weird.
Are you actually excited about Kamala? What is this, brother? I'm just giving you what is going on. I'm giving you what the actual battlefield looks like. Okay? As far as Kamala Harris goes, I have my reservations. I've talked quite a bit about what I think she could possibly do that would fuck up the bag that she currently has. Okay? I'm offering you analysis on what, and I'm telling you what is going on the ground, and I'm telling you what my potential picks are, my potential predictions are. Okay? And a lot of what I've told you was 100% correct. I told you that a lot of the double haters just hated how old Biden was, that the Democratic Party's platform across the board wasn't the issue. It was actually who was saying it that was the issue. And I showed you at the time the poll numbers for down ballot Democrat senators, okay, outperforming Joe Biden by 10 points in some of these key fucking states. I told you this over and over again. Just like I told you for years that Biden is too old, he would be a one-term president, and that was ridiculous to drop the incumbents advantage and many of the other complications that come with having a really old president. And yet, since 2019, I've been fucking saying this, and nobody wanted to listen to me. I'm glad that the Democratic Party got together and got their shit in order and actually did something smart for once, did something competent for once. Okay? But in terms of my own personal opinion on Kamala Harris, like I said, I need to see more. Obviously, she is still very much responsible for a lot of the actions of the current administration from where I'm standing, especially in terms of like what's going on in Gaza. Okay. And I need to see a change in not only messaging, but like actual action from her on that front. I am a firm believer that Americans don't necessarily give a shit about foreign policy, okay? And I think Trump recognizes that, or rather, Americans not only don't give a shit about foreign policy, but Americans also are more pro-peace and like less war than we give them credit for. As long as war is happening and like they don't have to think about it, they're fine with it. They don't give a shit. But like pro-peace my ass? No, dude, you don't understand. When people are campaigning, think about how Trump campaigns. Think about how Trump successfully campaigned in 2016. He literally tried and successfully, in my opinion, outflanked Hillary Clinton as a warmonger. Understand that I don't believe Trump is a dove, okay? I'm saying on the messaging front, Trump presented a better message on how he was going to end wars and stop wars, and how Hillary Clinton had been a formative figure in America getting into all these fucking wars. People forgot this for some goddamn reason. You mean he made it seem like she was a warmonger? No, she was a warmonger, and Trump put that in full display. But think about that. What does that represent? What does that mean? What does that mean in terms of she is a warmonger? She is a war hawk. Okay. Americans, in terms of the aesthetics, Americans are significantly more open-minded to a pro-peace message than a pro-war message. Okay. Donald Trump is currently running on no new wars happened under my presidency. Look at how many wars happened under Joe Biden. Now, luckily for the Democratic Party's prospects at this upcoming election, a lot of that stink is not on Kamala Harris. Okay? This is a massive W for the Democrats. They should lean on that and change trajectory, both on the narrative front and maybe even get some fucking solid wins. If some kind of commitment to a ceasefire, which Israel is never going to play ball, obviously, but if some kind of fucking commitment to a ceasefire and an actual ceasefire happens before this upcoming election, that would play phenomenally well for the Democratic Party. Okay? In terms of my own personal opinion on the matter, I think we need to see much more than just like a commitment to a ceasefire. But the reason why I talk about Trump's messaging is that even though Trump is not a fucking dove by any means whatsoever, and his actions in office prove that reality, he still presents himself as that. Why? Because Americans are open-minded to that, okay? Even if it's just for the aesthetics. And Democrats, whenever they fucking talk about NATO or talk about how many military bases we have, they are only talking to a handful of voters that care about the military-industrial complex. They're not talking to the broader Americans. Because if you were to straight up ask average Americans, like, would you rather have 800 military bases all around the planet or free healthcare? I think that the majority of Americans, possibly by like overwhelming majority margins, would say, no, I want healthcare and I want education. I want infrastructure. Instead of having 800 military bases, let's have 400 military bases and then have the other shit, you know? The only way that Israel could potentially do a ceasefire is if America says we're cutting aid until you fucking do the ceasefire. That's it. And the reality is because Americans don't give a fuck about foreign policy overall and have a tendency to at least respond positively to a less wars, please narrative, even when it's coming from psychopathic neocons like the Republican Party, who will then turn around and be like, yeah, we need to not go to war with Russia so we can go to war with China, which is fucking insane. Democrats lean into that and try to outflank them on the war hawk narrative. And also, simultaneously, they look like they're responsible for so many wars. They take ownership over it. That's not a good idea at all. It's a bad idea. I swear the staffers that watch you are the ones that convince Harris to run with the conservatives a weird narrative because you've been saying that shit for years, Lamau. I mean, maybe they just kind of arrived at that on their own. I don't know. I was talking to my normie friends this weekend, some of which are the classic, like middle of the ground, don't pay attention to shit. And they fucking hate JD Vance. They objectively, like legitimately right-wing adjacent people, center right to right-wing adjacent people, heard the JD Vance cat ladies quote and were like disgusted by it. Okay? They heard that and were like, that's so ridiculous. It's so gross. So I'm telling you, they're going along with very, very weird vibes and they're becoming normie repellent. More so than even 2022 somehow. They're scaring the hoes. You can't do this like sweaty groiper 4chan shit. Okay? Because in broad daylight in public, things are very different. When you're on the main stage, things are very different. I'll give you an example from my life, right? People clip shit out of context all the time. People talk about how fucking soy I am all the time, right? But if I'm like standing next to a normal human being, there's a difference there. You can't actually cut that narrative. It cuts across that narrative. What people can see in the real world is very different than what plays well online. Online, you can make the sweatiest, fucking weirdest, grossest arguments, especially if you tap into the right algorithm. It will present you with a false reality, and it will cause you to think that your advocacy is actually more popular than it really is to the median voter. Anyway, My right-wing adjacent friends are so obsessed with trans people. Twitter has literally broken them. Yeah. Huh.
We are going to win.
Vice President Kamala Harris didn't just rake in campaign cash this weekend. She also experienced a polling surge. In a new ABC News Ipsos poll, her favorability rating rose to 43%, up from 35% just a week ago. Among independents, it shot up 16 points, as her opponent, Donald Trump, saw his drop by 8.
She has no clue. She's evil.
Trump tested out a series of new personal attacks this weekend.
I'm running against a low IQ individual.
Kamala Harris is deadly destructive.
It's so funny that he's running with this when, like, the Republican Party, like establishment Republicans who are psychos themselves, like Mike Johnson, for example, recognize that that is not a smart play. Mike Johnson immediately was like, yo, cut this DEI shit out. Stop calling her a slut. Stop calling her fucking low IQ. You guys this is not a smart play. But they can't stop themselves. That's the one instinct they have. Okay? Is she a scary attorney general who loves locking black men and women in prison? Who is like clever and devilish and very radical? Or is she a dumb phony? Is she a dum-dum who doesn't deserve her position of power at all and was a DEI pick? These things, like, you have to figure out at least one of those two angles. They try to do this with Joe Biden too. They would be like, Joe Biden is so old, he doesn't know his ass from his elbow. And then when he would pop off and have like a unique moment where he could, deliver like an uninterrupted message, they would turn around and go, look at how evil and scary he is. And you can't do both. Which one is it? Is he actually a clever devil, or is he a fucking dumbass? It's crazy.
Destruction of America's borders is completely and totally disqualifying for her to be president.
Harris had this response at a fundraiser in Massachusetts.
And you may have noticed Donald Trump has been resorting to some wild lies about my record, and some of what he and his running mate are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
She got some backup from potential running mates.
If he wants to see a bum, he ought to look in the mirror.
Who held events on her behalf around the country.
We're not afraid of weird people.
Dude, I love that he's like trying to look younger. He's trying to look younger. You see that? Yeah, his biggest weakness is that he appears much older than he actually is. This is classic fascism, though. They need their enemies to be weak because power equals good, but they also need them to be scary and all-powerful because the threat needs to be real. No, I know. My enemy's both weak and strong. I know. But, like, narratively in the moment, it just, like, doesn't make sense. You got to lean on to, like, whichever one is the more successful strategy. And because they don't have, like, an adequate line of attack against Kamala Harris, they haven't been able to figure out which side they want to lean on. And worst of all, they just keep saying over and over again, that, like, Kamala Harris is fucking dumbass and she's a DEI hire. She's a whore. She's a childless woman, all this psycho shit. And that's not good narrative. At a certain point, like with respect to Donald Trump, that's what the Democrats did too. They keyed in on his own personality over and over again. A little too much, right? They just kept leaning into Trump's personality. That's what Hillary Clinton did. Wait, saying weird doesn't mean you're saying you're weak? No. What?
We're a little bit creeped out, but we're not afraid.
They also went after Trump for this unusual plea he made to Christian conservatives.
Christians, get out and vote just this time.
This one was crazy. This bar, we got to cover this extensively, okay? I'm going to cover this extensively. He went on the Turning Point Action. Like, he went on Turning Point Action and just fucking banged. Okay?
Just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians.
The Harris campaign said
like, what the fuck do you mean, bro?
He was signaling an end to democracy.
Like, what does that even mean? Why did you say that? Even when I saw that, I was like, what the fuck? Is he all right? Like, is his brain all right? What the fuck is going on? He also said, I'm not Christian. Yeah, that part is like, I think he said, I'm a Christian, but it sounded like he said, I'm not Christian. that, like, you're not going to get a lot of play there. I think, like, Republicans are not going to hear him saying, I'm not Christian. Okay? It doesn't make sense. Why the fuck would he say that anyway? Why would he say, I'm not Christian? Maybe at most it's a Freudian slip, you know?
Republicans weren't sure what he meant.
I think he was just trying to make a hyperbolic point that it can be fixed as long as he gets back into office and all that.
I think he's obviously making a joke about how bad things have been under Joe Biden.
Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator JD Vance, gave this.
Yeah, no, you guys are doing great. Great way to defend those statements. It's like, that is a completely nutty ass thing to say, okay?
Explanation to CBS News.
So I think he's saying, get out there, make sure this election matters, because if you don't, the next 4 years, we may not have a real election if the Democrats give illegal aliens the right to vote.
What?
It's important to note the Democrats have not suggested that undocumented migrants should get the right to vote anytime in the next 4 years. Democrats went after Vance all weekend, actually, for his past claim that childless cat ladies run the Democratic Party. And even some Republicans said privately that they're worried his comments will further erode Trump's support among women. Michelle?
It's so funny to be like, oh, it's just a joke. Oh, we're just joking. And then the Republicans are like leaning into that. I genuinely feel like this is how some leftists and how some rad fems, rad libs in general are like, when Republicans would be like, you guys are hysterical, blue-haired, joy killers, woke scolds in general. You don't want to have any fun. You don't want to have anybody have any fun whatsoever. And then some people will hear that and be like, no, that is literally me. I think that the best way to possibly moralize everything, the best way to show how fucking real I am and how committed I am to my own personal political ideology is to show you how much I fucking despise normal people having fun, and like wear that on your fucking sleeve. It's something that I obviously hate and have spent the past 5 years of my professional career ripping into the leftover, right? And because I think it just plays really poorly. Like, nobody gives a shit. The only thing people have are their fucking treats. So why are you trying to take people's treats away? Okay? It's just dumb. And that is basically what the Republicans are doing on the other side. Okay? They're annoying. They're fucking loud. And they're really, more importantly than anything else, gross. Okay? They're gross. They're sweaty. They're really fucking sweaty. And they love moralizing about their own worldview, about how, like, you have to abide by their standards. I think that is something that Americans broadly do not respond positively to. Okay? They don't. They think it's fucking odd. The whole point of this entire project is that you get treats and you get them cheap. Okay? We just kind of we kind of drown ourselves in commodity consumption. It's a big part of this project. We're the largest consumer engine on the planet. Okay? We want treats and we want them cheap. So when you're constantly fucking chirping about all this other shit and you're constantly being like, no, cat ladies are not having enough babies and we got to fucking restore the baby making machine that is the modern American, whatever. Like, if you say shit like that, they're going to be like, what the fuck are you saying? And that's the thing. Republicans have completely fucking leaned into that. Like, no, we are actually Christo-fascist weird dictators. I don't know why. Okay? But that is precisely what they're running on right now. And it's very odd. They're leaning into it more and more. The more people are calling them fucking weird, the more they lean into the weirdness. Doors unlocked. Doesn't JD Vance calling Kamala childless for raising her husband's child just alienate every adoptive foster parent? Yes. There was a really good, here, we'll watch the tone shift and then we'll talk about, there was a Trey Gowdy introduction that was like blistering.
Democrats are now embracing some weird messaging when it comes to the Trump campaign, and we mean that literally. As Politico puts it, allies of Kamala Harris are shifting their characterization of the Republican presidential ticket from being a threat to democracy to just plain weird. Take a listen.
The thing that these guys hate, by the way, is obviously being like humiliated. They hate that the most. And they also hate the spotlight, right? What does a 4chan poll loser hate more than anything else? Behaving in extremely online ways in broad fucking daylight, okay? They might actually foster a lot and garner a lot of attention and a lot of support in their own hug boxes, and they might lead them to thinking that they have a lot of momentum, right? But It's just like that story of the dude who called on 4chan for the assassination of the fucking cop in Florida. Okay? It's just like David DePipe. It's just like a litany of these archetypes that are just constantly permanently online, zero sunlight, neck bearded, living in the mother's basement, and constantly fucking chirping, and have like a bunch of different like Groyper accounts, you know, Himmler's Tit 1488 and the like. And while they get 60,000 likes on Twitter, even the average Republican, when they see that guy, go, ew, you're fucking gross. And oddly enough, the Republicans like have leaned into that guy, thinking that that guy is the median voter. But now, when you're running a general election, you can put the spotlight on guys like that and be like, this is your guy? This is the guy you're trying to appeal to? That's weird, man. That's a weird ass thing. That's a weird ass way to fucking present yourself. Feel me? Does anyone have that Trey Gowdy clip? Yeah, this is 4chan user accused of threatening to kill Florida sheriff gets arrested at mom's house. No, this is the one. This is the exact one I'm thinking of. This is what you look like. You might be able to present yourself as a Chad against the Democratic Party, or, you know, whoever your opponents are, your socialist opponents are, as like soy face. But when the spotlight is shined on you, you look like this. And then all of the other dudes in the same fucking circles that you're in will turn around and be like, oh, that's not us. That's just some gay guy. I bet he's a secret Democrat, actually. You know what I mean?
Okay. For the incident that you're aware of what's going on?
Yeah, I think I saw you there.
What you talked about, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay?
Okay.
So we're going to go back to headquarters. We'll do everything. And we also have a search warrant to search for electronic devices.
Okay.
What's upstairs? Your computer?
Yeah, can I get
shoes?
Yeah, shoes and a sweatshirt?
Yes. Yeah. Pat him down. We'll have a seat, and then we'll go up to your room.
Where's your cell phone right now? It should be upstairs.
And this is a copy of the search warrant.
Yeah.
It's for his room. We're gonna get computer devices, phones, whatnot, and that'll come with us. I'll write your receipt so you have everything that we took. Okay.
Like, look at this, bro. This is it. This is like peak online moderator, dude. This is how they operate. That's why it's like embarrassing to like key in on this as like your fucking base of support. Kamala's Project Special K makes Project 2025 look like daycare. She will force women to get abortions, send military to kidnap poor Hondurans and make them live in your homes. She will start 800 new wars. God help us. Like, I think he's trying to make a joke about, you know, what Democrats say about Project 2025 there. I suspect he's trying to fucking make a joke there, but it just like it just reads as like weird. Look at this person at a Nazi rally in the UK yeah. I mean, this is, behold the master race ass shit. Always. When you're this invested in right-wing narratives, like, you know, it's not just the way you look, okay? It's not just the way you look. It's the way you carry yourself online, and it's the way you carry your political message, right? You just look like a fucking gross weirdo to the average person. Now let's take a look at this ad that they just came out with on the weird shit.
Us MAGA Republicans banned abortion, but that's just the start.
That's just the start. If Trump gets elected, we want the government involved in all aspects of your sex life.
Way more involved.
Way more involved.
When you have sexual intercourse, it should be illegal to use contraception. No pills, no condoms.
Your genitals are reserved for procreation.
If you freeze 12 eggs, you should be required to have 12 babies, or else you're a serial killer. And I'm definitely not a serial killer.
Are you?
My son monitors.
I mean, this is not the best ad, I don't think. I get what the fuck is going on
my
here.
Porn usage to make sure I'm not self-pleasuring.
Just like Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. That's true, you can look it up.
Don't you think that's normal?
Yeah, I do.
It's normal for your son to do that.
You should have a family member monitor your porn use too.
Because pleasuring yourself is very, very naughty.
I'm voting in November.
I'm voting in November.
We're all voting in November. Are you?
Because what happens in your bedroom is up to me.
Is up to me and my son. Also, mouth stuff is a sin.
Too much. It's too scuffed. I don't know what. There's a bad energy. I'm not gonna lie. There's a bad energy emanating from that ad. It just like gives me weird vibes. I know that they're trying to make the Republicans look like that, and they are like that. But it would play better if they just showed Republicans doing that in general. Feel me? Just show Mike Johnson, Tim Pool clips, JD Vance. Are you racist?
Listen to the guy. He's talking about Hannibal Lecter.
Just a warning to chatters. Mike from PA pointed out that's a scam pack, just so you know. Yeah, I don't really like the fucking ad that much. I'll be honest. It's a swing and a miss for me, but rare Haas wrong moment. The ad was great. It'll work. Nah. No, the ad I don't think the ad plays that well. Yeah, you don't have to make up dudes and play that role when the dudes are right there.
And shocking sharks and just whatever crazy thing pops into his mind. That is weird behavior. And I don't think you call it anything else.
I think Donald Trump, I know him, and he's probably sitting and watching the TV. And every day, it comes out, Vance has done something more extreme, more weird, more erratic.
It's not just a weird style that he brings. It's that this leads to weird policies.
You may have noticed Donald Trump has been resorting to some wild lies about my record, and some of what he and his running mate are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
Joining me now, Theron Johnson, former Southern Regional Director for Obama's 2012 campaign and a Democratic strategist. Susan Del Percio is a Republican strategist and MSNBC political analyst. Okay, Theron, what's with the weird?
Well, I'll tell you this, Chris. You're right. A lot of surrogates, the vice president herself has chosen to use this word. And I think it's a good way to describe the former president. Now, one thing that I know for sure, there are probably 10 other words that they want to use that could describe the former president. But weird seems to have a sort of tone to it and it's sticking. Many Democrats believe that there are unorthodox things about Donald Trump before he even ran for president. But we remember.
Dude, can you imagine how fucking stupid the Democratic Party's strategy prior to this was? Which was, we need a strong Republican Party. Why can't we have a strong Republican Party? As though there is any such reality where there was a strong Republican Party, or that it would be a good thing to have a strong Republican Party. Like, think about how fucking stupid they were for so long. Like, it just fucking, oh my God, I cannot. It's just.
How he ran really on to destroy the Republican Party. Yes, he won in 2016. And there were a lot of weird things that he said while he was president in his 4 years. And so it's got to be something that the polling data shows resonates not only with Democrats, but it also resonates with working class Americans. And this is what this race is going to come down to, is that working class Americans of all races have got to figure out who they want to vote for in this race. And I believe that Kamala Harris and her team and the surrogates are honing in on this message, because I will challenge any Republican to have a debate with me or any other Democratic strategist, and we can write down at least 25 things that the former president has either said or done that can be classified as weird. But that's not ultimately what the campaign is going to focus on for the duration, but it is something now that I think that is resonating with the base and those working class Americans.
I think, Susan, that Theron used an interesting word, which is tone, right? Something we know that voters, particularly those middle voters, have talked about. They talked about it 4 years ago. They're talking about it now. Let's hear, conversely, some of the things Donald Trump has said.
She was a bum 3 weeks ago. She was a bum.
A bum.
A failed vice president and a failed administration. So now we have a new candidate to defeat the most incompetent, unpopular, and far-left vice president in American history. She's a radical left lunatic. She has no clue. She has no clue. She's evil.
Evil, lunatic, incompetent, bum, as opposed to weird. Does that speak to those voters who, frankly, are exhausted by the level of vitriol in politics today?
Well, Donald Trump sounds plain old bonkers. I'm going to add that as one of the words we can use in addition to weird. And the problem for Donald Trump is the campaign may have adjusted to a Harris candidacy, but Donald Trump hasn't. He hasn't figured out what to say about her. He keeps trying these lines, and they're not going to work, Chris, because at this point, he's got to go for the middle. That's where the fight is. And he's not going to get, especially independent women in the suburbs, with that kind of language.
I mean, you talked about this again, Theron, as, you know, being part of the tone. I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence that many Democrats were using that same word at the same time. But honestly, what do you think it buys Democrats? What does it buy the campaign, and for how long?
Well, it reminds Democrats that we cannot underestimate a Trump candidacy. I'm not saying that we took him for granted in 2016, but there were many people, including myself, that thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win that race. And so we learned from our mistake. We saw 4 years of him doing the name callings. I mean, what you just showed, Chris, is only a snapshot into what the former president has said about not just Vice President Harris, but other women who he has attacked along the way. And so, again, it's a phased approach. It's driving up momentum. It's a very sort of politically correct way to describe the former president's behavior. And I think you'll hear more harsh words used to describe him as the campaign goes on, and definitely at the convention. But again, I go back to what my colleague just said. We know that the goal here is 270 electoral votes. Her choice for vice president by August 7th will play an added role into that. But ultimately, there's got to be data that shows how do you motivate the base, but more importantly, what are those moderate, independent voters, those working class Americans of all races want to hear about this man, and just compare the two. You can say a lot of things about Vice President Kamala Harris. Yes, they're going to talk about how she laughs, and they're going to talk about her being a woman. The sexism will be on Front Street going forward. But ultimately, I think that the American people is looking forward to the future. And who's the best person to continue what Joe Biden has done for this country and make it even better going forward?
Yeah, one of the interesting things, I think, in this campaign is how memes that people on the right used, they thought, to attack Harris actually have been sort of adopted, especially by a lot of younger voters, which we know they can be unpredictable, right? Mm-hmm. So she seems to be changing her social media narrative. Let me play for you a TikTok that just went out.
Hey, Kamala, what are we going to say to Donald Trump in November?
Bye, bye, bye.
Melissa Ryan, who worked in digital strategy for progressive campaigns for Democrats, told NBC, "This is a reversal of what I saw in 2016 when it felt like Trump had just taken over."
I hate it. I hate this. It's so fucking cringe. Don't do this shit. Like, be serious, man. Be serious. Be fucking serious. Be serious. Be serious. Don't run this fucking 2016 ass like Hillary Clinton. Look at all the fucking liberal elites. They're all on board with us shit. Please just fucking run a normal campaign. Oh my God. Everybody remembers the Pokemon go to the polls. Like, what are we doing? Be fucking serious. Don't try to lean into the memes too much. Just let it happen organically. Oh my God, dude. I think Americans want like normal, competent leadership. More than we care to admit. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that the Democrats should be like, look at how many fucking Hollywood celebrities love us and like we're hanging out with them. Just be like, listen, I'm running for president, okay? I'm not running to fucking win daytime Emmys like Donald Trump. I'm the motherfucking president going forward, okay? What you should do in that circumstance is you'd be like, here are the things I want to do. Here are the things they want to take away from you. Here are the things I'm going to defend. And here are the things I want to do. Just be like, look, they're weird and they're constantly talking about culture war shit. And they don't actually care about putting money on the fucking table. Okay. Putting food on the table, putting money in your pockets. You feel me? Like, Americans care about not seeing the top of the hour ad break. They want to have more. They want to have more disposable income so they can use it at the Hasanabi broadcast. That's what Americans give a shit about. You feel me? Because at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break, and Americans are like, God damn it, dude, I don't want to see that. Hot take, that TikTok was cringe in a good way? No. Anyway, here's the 3-minute ad break now. You can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky.
Over the internet. In 2024, who wins the...
I disagree. Kamala's already seen as a fun auntie. This just solidifies that. I don't think it's going to affect her. That TikTok wasn't for you. It was for the younger audience. What? You think younger... No. That TikTok is the most millennial coded TikTok of all time. The fuck are you talking about? You're so unimaginably wrong, dude. I know you're trying to call me old here, but that's crazy. What the fuck? Bro said Gen Z, and then they fucking showed In Sync. The younger audiences are, the less they give a shit about voting. That's number one. And number two, the younger the audiences are, the more fucking clued in they are on like marketing. When something smells wrong, they hate it. It comes across as cringe and inauthentic. And I think that that ad and ads like that, just like the Hillary Clinton campaign of 2016, had a lot of cringe and inauthentic moments that I think really grossed people out, beyond the fact that, like, obviously Hillary Clinton was seen as a demon for good reason.
The internet, how important is it?
Well, who wins it in a positive way is Vice President Harris. She's going to keep out there with her message. And it should stand out that she's nearly 20 years his junior. So when we talk about the future, younger people, seeing Donald Trump on TikTok just really doesn't work. So,
but also, there in some of these, I think there's a question of who's having fun. And it seems like...
Wrong. Donald Trump is an organic content creator. Many people don't know this because you were probably too young. But Donald Trump used to post Vines on the regular. Okay? He knows how to make short form content. He knows how to fucking tweet. He knows how to also make and he has a pretty solid team in terms of like social media. Donald Trump's hanging out with the fucking Nelk Boys before he ran for president. Like, you guys probably don't know this. But yeah, Donald Trump used to make Vines all the time. No, he is like more organic on there than Kamala Harris is. Straight up. I'll stand by that. And people being like, oh, Kamala Harris is having fun on TikTok. Like, no.
People are looking
for
fun.
Energy and going forward have something to bring. And just to follow up on what Theron said, Harris gets to introduce her vice president by August 7th. That's going to be a lot of media and a lot of press. Then she rolls into a convention on August 19th, and that's going to dominate. And just a month later, Chris, people start voting. So this is going to be really difficult for Donald Trump to break through.
Okay, I want to show you guys one of the most devastating intros I've ever heard on Fox News about someone they're about to have on the broadcast, and that someone being the vice presidential candidate for the Republican Party. Okay? This is legitimately like blistering. Listen to what Trey Gowdy, consistently the worst haircut in Congress, had to fucking say about JD Vance before interviewing JD Vance.
In a moment, we'll speak with Senator JD Vance. We have never met before, but we have many friends in common who tell me that he is smart and he is talented and he is more than capable. None is perfect, no, not one. That's what the good book says. And the American people are forgiving if we ask. Let's welcome GOP vice presidential candidate Senator JD Vance from the great state of Ohio. Welcome, Senator, and thank you.
Wait, no. This isn't it. Where's the intro? Bro, listen to this shit.
Many times, and you should too, in full. I've watched that interview many times, and you should too, in full, and draw your own conclusions. When that interview surfaced, two things leapt to my mind. Those of us who talk for a living make mistakes. We say things that in hindsight we might phrase differently or better or not at all. And then I thought about a stormy day at Reagan National Airport where I met two women desperately trying to get home to South America. I was trying to get home to South Carolina. We spent the whole day together, finally making it to Charlotte, and then somehow we got them on a flight to Houston. They were headed to visit family in South America before returning to their new home called America. And when we parted ways, they said they'd like to pray for me as their way of saying thanks for the day spent together. And I assured them it's too late to help me. But I do have a friend who's expecting, and she got some tough news about her unborn child. Would they please pray for her instead? And they did, and they still do to this day. They're Catholic nuns, childless, dedicated to God, love this country, living lives of service to others. And it's not just Catholic nuns. Some of the finest people I know don't have children. Teachers and guidance counselors and lawyers and doctors, and they love other people's children enough to teach and guide and protect and minister to them.
Yeah, you didn't see that coming, did you? A lot of you went, oh, my man's just yapping, he's weird. And then he just swerved into a direction where you were like, what the fuck? Bro, that is crazy, dude. That's like Kendrick Lamar shit.
Children, teachers, and guidance counselors, and lawyers, and doctors, and they love other people's children enough to teach and guide and protect and minister to them. Some people choose not to have children. Others desperately want them, but they can't. In a moment, we'll speak with Senator JD Vance. We have never met before, but we have many friends in common who tell me that he is smart and he is talented and he is more than capable. None is perfect, no, not one. That's what the good book says. And the American people are forgiving if we ask.
Dude, he literally, like, that's an insane opener before this intro, before this interview. That's how he introduced JD Vance, by absolutely fucking daggering him.
For joining us. I've heard from many women, most of whom are conservative, and they would very much like to vote for President Trump and you, but Senator, they are disappointed. So nuns and priests aside, do you agree that there are people who very much love this country and are invested in its future, but they also happen to be childless?
Oh, of course I believe that, Trey. And if you look at the full context of what I said, it's very clear the Democrats have tried to take this thing out of context and blow it out of proportion. Which
That's weird because it seems like you're saying Trey Gowdy took it out of context as well. You also doubled down on it on Megyn Kelly last week, which was crazy. So I don't know if you are actually, if you are legitimately trying to run the they took it out of context line.
Which is what they always do, Trey, because they don't have an agenda to run on themselves. And if you look at what the American people are most concerned about, Trey, it's not an out-of-context quip that I made 3 years ago. It's the fact that Kamala Harris, the border czar, opened the American southern border. It's the fact that the Democratic Party has become explicitly anti-family in some of their policies. In fact, you just heard Kamala Harris in a Surface clip recently talk about how it was a bad idea to have kids because of climate change anxiety. So really what I'm trying to get at here, Trey, is...
Yeah, no, that was good. That was a good deflection. He's like, now that I said I was clip chimp, let me turn around and clip chimp Kamala Harris. Not gonna work, big dog. The narrative is set in, especially considering that you fucking literally doubled down on it last week.
Is that it's important for us to be pro-family as a country. Of course, for a whole host of reasons, it's not going to work out for some people. We should pray for those people and, of course, have sympathy for them. I still think that that means we should be pro-family, generally speaking, as a party. And I think that our country has become particularly hard for parents, especially under the policies of Kamala Harris.
All right, Senator, I want to ask you about the other part of that again, is making news. But I'm not asking you because it's making news. I'm asking you more because people are calling me who very much would like to support you and President Trump. Dr. Connie Rice does not have children. Neither does my friend, your colleague, Tim Scott. George Washington did not have biological children, and neither did James Madison. So I think you will agree with me that direct offspring are not necessary to be fully invested in the future of this country.
Of course not, Trey. I do think that being a parent actually has a profound effect on somebody's perspective, and we should honor and respect that. But there are a whole host of people who don't have children for a whole host of reasons, and they certainly are great people who can participate fully in the life of this country. And that's not what I said, Trey. If you look at what the left has done, they have radically taken this out of context and, in fact, aggressively lied about what I've said. What I do think is true, Trey, and this goes to the heart of what I was talking about 3 years ago in those comments, but it's going to be something I continue to talk about, is that the left has increasingly become explicitly anti-child and anti-family. They've encouraged young families not to have children at all because of concerns over climate change. They've suggested that people who do have children are somehow being selfish, when I think being a...
This, by the way, is not going to work because the Democratic Party's signature legislative agenda item right now is expanding the child tax credit, which the Republican Party alongside Joe Manchin tanked, right? That's why I fucking hate Joe Manchin, by the way. That is and I've said this time and time again, the fact that Joe Manchin was a spoiler on the Dem side is insane because it kind of cut into the Republican Party is objectively anti-child expansion of child tax credits. But even then, a singular Republican could have turned the outcome around on that front. They still can, as a matter of fact. It's still in the docket. That's a thing that the Republicans could currently vote on if they genuinely were on board with it. Okay? So the idea that this is not something that Biden has advocated for or that Kamala Harris is currently not advocating for is silly. They both have, and they both continue to do so. So claiming that the Democrats are anti-child and that like you are actually pro-child or pro having more children when you have tried to add additional taxes to those who already pay more taxes because they don't have dependents to claim is ridiculous. When are you going to face the facts? Kamala voters are just cat ladies? Yeah, good one. It's a disastrous way to navigate through this space, okay? It is a disastrous way to try and appear as though you are even somewhat normal. It is utterly objectionable. It is reprehensible. It's not fucking normal. Here it is. Schumer making Republicans vote against the child tax credit. The bipartisan package includes an extension of the expanded child tax credit, which could lift 500,000 children out of poverty, according to estimates. It almost certainly does not have enough GOP support to pass. Big help to vulnerable Democrats. Look at that. I don't know what happened. Chat, but I think the Democrats got hit in the head or something, like they all collectively fell and then accidentally arrived at competent leadership. I genuinely don't know what the fuck is going on with the Democratic Party, but this is like so not like Chuck Schumer. This is Mitch McConnell behavior. Like, I don't know what is going on here, but this is good policy and good politics. Very unlike, it is very uncharacteristic of the Democratic Party. Okay. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how this is happening. Biden also seemingly is picking up steam on the SCOTUS attacks. Let's take a look at that. SCOTUS is also a deeply unpopular institution right now.
In his first address after the tragedy, President Johnson said, and I quote, "Nothing could more eloquently honor President Kennedy's memory than the earliest passage of the Civil Rights Bill." That's what he said. As a kid coming up, I always admired President Johnson for his public service, whether it was a school teacher in South Texas, master of the United States Senate, historic vice president and president. His philosophy was simple. In a great society, no one should be left behind. He'd say, it's time for us to come to see that every American gets a decent break and a fair chance to make good. As Andy Young said, President Johnson.
Yeah, of course he's glazing Johnson, dude. Literally fucking had to resign for his unconditional support for objectively unpopular war, while simultaneously he also had to resign and is also advocating for an unimaginably unpopular war.
A defining moment that has since opened doors of opportunities for all Americans.
Also, they both have big ass dicks.
Sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, national...
I know he's at the LBJ library. Chad, shut the fuck up. Let me make a joke, please.
Act and the Fair Housing Act. These three landmark laws he signed are remarkable in their scale and their scope. Taken together, these three acts have made this nation fundamentally more fair, fundamentally more just, and most importantly, fundamentally more consistent with our founding principles. For real. And we're a better nation because of them. We must be clear. Their work, our work, is not done. It's not done. We do not celebrate these laws as part of our past, but as critical components of our future. President Johnson understood what President Lincoln understood in his own time, that the courts would determine the scale and scope of our laws. Over 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, President Johnson vowed, in his words, to do this job that Lincoln started, by challenging the court to live up to its constitutional responsibility. He did that by nominating Thurgood Marshall as the first black justice of the Supreme Court, by aggressively defending civil rights throughout the courts. But now we live in a different era. In recent years, extreme opinions that the Supreme Court has handed down have undermined long-established civil rights principles and protections. 2013, the Supreme Court in Shelby County case gutted the Voting Rights Act, opening the floodgates to a wave of restrictive voting laws that have seen states across the country pass. In 2022, the court overruled Roe v. Wade and the right to choose that had been the law of the land for 50 years. 50 years. The following year, the same court eviscerated affirmative action, which had been upheld and reaffirmed for nearly 50 years as well. And now, there's an extreme movement and agenda called Project 2025. Well, by the way, they're serious, man. They're planning another onslaught attacking civil rights in America. For example, Project 2025 calls aggressively attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion across all aspects of American life. This extreme MAGA movement even proposes to end birthright citizenship. That's how far they've come. End birthright citizenship, which if you're born in America, you're an American citizen. That's how extreme these guys are. This issue and so many other civil rights that Americans take for granted are likely to come before the court in the years to come. And most recently and most shockingly, the Supreme Court established in Trump versus the United States a dangerous precedent. They ruled, as you know, that the President of the United States has immunity for potential crimes he may have committed while in office. Immunity. This nation was founded on the principle there are no kings in America. Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law. And for all practical purposes, the court's decision almost certainly means that a president can violate their oath, flout our laws, and face no consequences. Here's what Justice Sotomayor, Supreme Court Justice, wrote in her dissent, and I quote, "Under the majority's reasoning, the president now will be insulated from criminal prosecution. Orders a Navy SEAL team seeks to assassinate a political rival. Immune. Organizes a military coup to hold on to power. Immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon. Immune. In every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law." Just what Justice Sotomayor wrote in her dissent. Folks, just imagine what a president could do trampling civil rights and liberties given such immunity. The court's being used to weaponize an extreme and unchecked agenda. This decision is a total affront to the basic expectations we have for those who wield the power in this
They
nation.
swapped this motherfucker's drugs out? What's going on?
They are expected to be wholly accountable under the law. The president is no longer constrained by the law, and only limits on abuse of power will be self-imposed by the president alone. That's a fundamentally flawed view and a fundamentally flawed principle, a dangerous principle. On top of its extreme decisions, the court is mired in a crisis of ethics. These scandals involving the justices have caused public opinion to question the court's fairness and independence that are essential to faithfully carrying out its mission of equal justice under the law. For example, there are documented reports of a decades-long effort to reshape the judiciary, including the Supreme Court backed by shadow special interests that also support Project 2025. Undisclosed gift to justice is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars from wealthy benefactors who have interest before the very court they're contributing to. Conflicts of interest from those connected to January 6th insurrectionists, and a blatant attack on nominating and confirming justices of the court itself. Do you all remember when Justice Scalia died in February of 2016? And the Republicans blocked the president's nomination, President Obama's nomination, to fill that vacancy for nearly a year by making up an entirely new standard that there be no confirmations of the court during an election year. But then, when Justice Ginsburg died in 2020, Republicans rushed through the President Trump's nominee at the very same time votes are being cast in an election that Trump would lose. It's outrageous. I know I don't look it, but I served in the Senate for 36 years, including as chairman and ranking member of the Judiciary Committee. I've been told that I've overseen more Supreme Court nominations as senator, vice president, and president than anyone in history, anyone alive today, I should say. I have great respect for our institutions and the separation of powers laid out in our Constitution. But what's happening now is not consistent with that doctrine of separation of powers. Extremism is undermining the public confidence in the court's decisions. As soon as I came to office, I convened a bipartisan presidential commission on the Supreme Court of the United States, comprised of leading constitutional scholars, both liberal and conservative, provide recommendations, potential reforms to the court. I've been careful in these deliberations because these are serious, serious decisions. In the face of increasing threats to American democratic institutions, I used the Commission's analysis, and today I'm calling for 3 bold reforms to restore trust and accountability.
It's kind of crazy that they're like finally using the broad unpopularity of the Supreme Court, which has like received its worst marks as an institution, to literally finally turn around and like hit this on partisan angles. You had a fucking right-wing supermajority, dumbass. Like, why didn't you fucking do anything?
Called "No One Is Above the Law" amendment. It holds what? I mean this sincerely. It holds that there's no immunity for crimes former president committed while in office. I share our founders' belief that the president must answer to the law. The president is accountable in the exercise of the great power of the presidency. We're a nation of laws, not kings and dictators. The decision can be boiled down to the title of one case: Trump versus the United States. The court asserted it was making a ruling for the ages. That isn't true. The court made a ruling for one, a former president. No other president in our history has asked for this kind of immunity for criminal actions. And no president, no former president, not me, not one, has and should have been given any exception to this with such immunity. The second thing I'm asking for, we've had term limits for presidents of the United States for nearly 75 years after the Truman administration. And I believe we should have term limits for Supreme Court justices of the United States as well. In fact, the United States is the only major constitutional democracy that gives lifetime seats in their high court. Term limits would help ensure that the court membership changes with some regularity. That would make timing for the court's nomination more predictable and less arbitrary. Reduce the chance that any single presidency imposes undue influence in generations to come. The bipartisan commission I convened analyzed various term limit structures. Based on their report, I believe the best structure is the 18-year term limit. That would help ensure the country would not have what it has now: an extreme court that's the product of an attack on the confirmation process that's been weaponized by those seeking to carry out an extreme agenda for decades to come. By the way, these guys mean it. These guys mean it. Project 2025 is real. They mean it. Third, I'm calling for a binding code of conduct for the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's current ethics code is weak and, even more frightening, voluntary. Any code of Congress must be enforceable. Under the reform I propose, justice would be required to disclose gifts, refrain from public political activity, accuse themselves in cases in which they or their spouses have a financial or other conflict of interest. Most people don't realize that Congress passed a law decades ago that says all federal judges, including Supreme Court justices, have to recuse themselves in such cases. But the current justices insist on enforcing that requirement themselves without any public oversight or compulsion. See, that's their decision. They don't have to tell us how they made it. That might work if the court was actually enforcing those requirements, but they are not. The court is not self-policing. The court is not dealing with the obvious conflicts of interest. We need a mandatory code of ethics for the Supreme Court, and we need it now. My fellow Americans, based on all my experience, I'm certain we need these reforms. We need these reforms to restore trust in the courts, preserve the system of checks and balances that are vital to our democracy. There are also common sense reforms the vast majority of the American people support, as well as leading constitutional law scholars, progressives and conservatives. I look forward to working with the Congress to implement these necessary reforms. A number of members of Congress are here today. Let me close with this. President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 just 2 days before the 4th of July. He said in that bill signing, and I quote, "This is a proud triumph. Yet those who founded our country knew that freedom would be secure only if each generation fought to renew in largest meaning," end of quote. That's what I've tried to do throughout my career, inspired by the cause of civil rights. That's what got me involved initially. My state was a state that was segregated by law. We were one who, only reason we didn't fight in the side of the South, we couldn't get there.
Yeah,
serious.
I like it. If it's retroactive,
Motivated me
Alito,
to
Thomas,
be
and
a public
Roberts are
defender.
gone.
A county councilman. I'll never forget, I had a good job with a big trial firm.
Not that it matters, because I don't think that it's gonna happen. But
study for the bar for 6 months before you're allowed to take it. And in the meanwhile, I was studying for the bar. That's when Dr. King was assassinated. We're the only state in the nation, city in the nation, that had the military stationed on every corner with drawn bayonets for 10 months. For 10 months, assisting, because we had a very conservative Democratic governor. In those days, when the Democrats won, they could
I low-key
choose to
don't
be
think this is
part
a
of the
bad
Southern
thing.
Governors or Northeast Governors Conference.
okay, he's just talking about history shit. Exclusive: the White House didn't consult Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Dick Durbin and other key congressional Democrats on Biden's proposal to dramatically overhaul the Supreme Court. I'm not kidding. This is a good thing, because what the fuck has Dick Durbin done? What the fuck has that goddamn charlatan done at the Senate Judiciary? He should have been doing this already. He should have had long, drawn out, televised, highly explosive committee hearings in the Senate Judiciary Committee where he brought up Supreme Court of the United States justices and called them out for literally lying to Congress when they were being appointed. He should have done that with the ethics investigation, with the ethics violation investigations. He didn't do a single one of those things. He was just out there jorking his peanuts, okay? I don't give a fuck. Now, Biden is obviously doing this because this is good for his legacy, okay? This is good for his legacy. This is good for, obviously, like, the Democratic Party's reelection chances in general. But, like, this is a good legacy move overall. And I think that's what he's going for now. He's going for a legacy run. I don't think it's gonna pull through. Having said that, however, you know, it's not a bad thing to advocate from the bully pulpit. That's it. What? Details on how the term limit works, if you want to know. I figure it won't pass, but I like the details. Okay. I don't know what the fuck's going on, but your Explore More posts are psychotic. Or my Explore More posts are psychotic underneath the fucking thing that you just linked me, the Imgur link that you just linked me. But here, the proposal is very close to one White House proposed in the Senate. Basically, the current president appoints a new justice every odd year, non-election year, and the longest tenure justice served is moved to senior status. Every justice will serve 18 years before being moved to senior status. Senior status means you are still Supreme Court justice, but you can only hear cases from original jurisdiction. Appellate jurisdiction, all appeal cases would only be heard by the newest 9 justices. Ooh, wait, this is like expanding the court without expanding it. Is July 29th, Imgur posts exclusively weird stuff today? Wait, really? The court's original jurisdiction is a set of cases that can be brought before it directly rather than on appeal. The Constitution doesn't allow Congress to change the court's original jurisdiction, but it does allow exceptions and regulations to its appellate jurisdiction. So this means if an original jurisdiction case comes up, 15 plus justices will hear that case. These are rare, but in normal cases, we are used to the Supreme Court hearing would only be the most recent 9. Additionally, if a justice dies before they serve their 18 years, the Senate proposal has the current sitting president immediately replace their seat to bring the court back to 9. They would not skip their next odd year, and if it's in an odd year, they get 2. I think this is good. It's basically a way to pack the court without saying you're packing the court, which has, I think, a lot of political capital attached to it. Obviously, I don't think that like this will pass either, because why the fuck would the Republicans allow such a thing to happen when they have a solid, sexy ass young ass super majority. You know what I mean? So you would need a constitutional amendment. The only thing you could do would actually be the pack to court. Yeah. I mean, I don't even necessarily think packing the court is a bad idea, like, or a bad thing to advocate for. But at least the Democratic Party is like on the aesthetics front. I think that they're leaning on the unpopularity, the genuine. Oh my God, Kaya is snoring so fucking loudly right now. Hold on, let me see if you can hear it. No, you can't hear it. Never mind. Come on. All right, I'm trying to. It's not. The microphone is not picking it up. Let me see. She stopped snoring now. The best part is lawyers on Twitter, so grain of salt, say this doesn't need an amendment or worse is law. And to sue to overturn this, if it passes, will be near impossible. Who would have standing? Would Clarence Thomas sue the court to sit on the bench to decide in favor of himself? I mean, maybe.
Phrase.
Let's see what Kat's saying at Mother Jones. DEI. On DEI. The 5 is reacting. Hogwatch. Wait, they're doing a reaction stream? Bro, they're trying to be me so fucking bad. It's crazy.
Laid out a plan to break up the Supreme Court and then told a lot of great stories from the 70s. You had something you wanted to say before he so rudely interrupted you, Brian Kilmeade.
Well, I just think he just made the Supreme Court even more political if it's indeed possible. And he brings up Project 25 and
Okay, he said Brian kill me. I'm not kidding.
John Roberts, the Supreme Court justice, saved Obamacare. And I just think he had opportunity to balance it out. But it's a campaign speech that he was probably going to make only.
He definitely said
Kamala
Brian kill me,
Harris
right?
was this great leader of the future. Probably wasn't in the original copy that he was going to say last week because he dropped out on Sunday. It's a little disappointing, but now the Supreme Court's going to be dragged through it. And I think that every time these Supreme Court justices, instead of walking around with pride, they're going to walk around feeling like they're a target.
And I just want to say something about it too. I mean, he started this. He talked about fundamental fairness and you know that they're going to undermine the.
His name is Brian Kilmeade, not Brian Kill Me. That's the joke. That's why I say Brian Kill Me, Brian Kill Myself as a substitute. When I want to say similar things, maybe I say, "Oh, I'm Brian Kill Me."
This guy just says one thing.
He gave his eulogy.
Yeah, he gave his eulogy. And then the other thing, they keep talking about making sure that these Supreme Court justices have an ethics guideline.
Wait, you guys,
so do my air staff.
Wait, you guys literally thought his name was Brian Kill Me? Oh my God, I'm so fucking irresponsible with my platform. I've cultivated an entire generation of people accidentally saying Arkansas, jalapeno poppers. You know what I mean? And now thinking that the name is actually Brian Kill Me. A lot of you motherfuckers probably say Obabe or not Obabe, sorry, Brandon. Like all of these like different things I say as a joke. You might do Obama or Obama, but more importantly, you probably say Brandon. I never refer to Joe Biden as Joe Biden anymore. I always refer to him as Brandon. It's kind of crazy.
Agenda couldn't get any more ridiculous. The party rallying behind Kamala Harris by leaning into the word weird to attack Donald Trump and his running mate, JD Vance. And
Yeah, come on, Janine, tell us how not weird you are.
Attack against Trump if she were ever to face him on the debate stage.
It's just plain weird.
Oh, they hate it. Oh, this is good.
That's the box you put that in, right?
It's not just a weird style that he brings. It's that this leads to weird policies.
That is weird behavior.
More extreme, more weird, erratic.
I mean, on the other side, they're just weird.
The 32 ounces of weird.
Donald Trump and his weirdo running mate.
And by the way, they are weird.
It is bizarre. It's weird. It is weird.
JD Vance, just dumb Vance, is pretty weird.
JD Vance, brushing off the attack, says keep him coming.
Doesn't hurt my feelings. Look, the price of admission, meaning the price of getting to serve the people of this country, is the Democrats are going to attack us with everything that they have. I think it's an honor.
And the media's honeymoon with Kamala is far from over. New York Magazine is out with this cover of Harris and her Democrat cheerleaders titled, "Welcome to Camelot." Camelot. All right. Okay, so I'll start with you,
weird.
Brian. They're changing. I mean, we were extremist, we were radical, and now we're just weird. Why are they softening the terminology when we needed to be deprogrammed? We were a cult. Now we're weird.
I could give my opinion. I'm not sure what's behind it. I wasn't in part of that think tank. But I will say this. the whole democracy is at stake was not working. But saying that Donald Trump and he's going to overthrow democracy wasn't working. The trying to put him in jail
That's not
and
true.
lawfare
It was
wasn't
a
working.
very successful landing. It was a very successful line of attack.
So let's make him weird. And I thought that Donald Trump Jr. put out a couple of videos that said, I'll give you weird. Kamala Harris giving her pronouns before a big speech to Chris Cuomo before a major thing. And to talk about some of her stances when it comes to AOC, saying that we should start taxing people 80%. She's like, you know what? That's a good, innovative idea. That's kind of weird. Also, I think outside Jesse, most of us are weird. Most of us, outside Jesse, most of us have a little bit of thing that's a little non-traditional. And I think by calling people weird, that'll make them more relatable.
Is this Dana, a part of their effort to appeal to Gen Z because, you know, they may buy into that?
Yeah.
No,
maybe.
This is literally, dude, no, this is actually an appeal to the
What I think is weird
suburbs.
is not thinking for yourself and just listening to the bat signal and saying, okay, today we call them weird, got it. And then everybody does it. I think it's so bizarre. I'd rather just think for myself. I also think that it's amorphous language. It's like, well, weird can be good, right? I guess. But I've also thought online it's been pretty interesting to say JD Vance is weird. And then you click on the picture and it's some like craziness on the left. So I don't know where this is all going. I think that both sides are trying to land on how they want to define each other now because the race is different.
Well, could it be, Jesse, that people are just tired of the name calling and
I'm not tired of it. I love the name calling, Judge, and I like laughing, but I guess we're going to have to go with, what's the new one? Crazy? It's hard to keep up with, but these are good. Listen, I think probably November 6th, the Democrats are going to look back at this landslide shellacking that they just got handed and think, why did I waste 3 days in late July calling the Trump people weird? The only way Kamala Harris has a shot.
Because the policy prescriptions and the positions you have are gross.
From Joe Biden.
They're gross. On social issues, you guys are weird as fuck. You literally are not even remotely interested in like running a competent administration, a competent campaign. Yeah. You think they'll start saying Holocaust Harris is a super last ditch effort? Oh my God. Maybe. Probably not.
Demolish Joe Biden for 90 minutes. I didn't see him weird. When I saw Trump go like this, fight after surviving a bullet, I didn't think weird. Most people don't Donald Trump.
That's not what they're talking about, big dog.
We can play it all day. Look at the Biden White House. You got cocaine, you got rabid dogs, you got secret Parkinson's doctors, you have Dylan all up in that place. It's political projection. They leaked something. Trump was going to call her weird.
Dylan? Oh, do you mean Dylan Mulvaney? Thank you for proving the fucking point. There you go. Thank you for proving the point. That's precisely what people mean when they say, oh, remember that one trans influencer that was on a singular Bud Light can? Remember that one trans influencer that was on a singular Bud Light can that moved discourse for an entire month where Republicans were shooting at Bud Light cans? Remember? That was weird. That is what we mean when we say y'all are fucking weird. And I'm glad the Democratic Party is finally listening to that. Let's see what my liberal darling has to say.
A very good week in terms of coverage, but she's just flat out had a good week. She's done really effective rallies, her team of surrogates, and that's where weird comes from. It comes from Governor Tim Walz from Minnesota, who has a very plain speaking way about him, and he was giving an interview, and he said they're just weird, and then it caught on from there. And I think that people are sick of the vitriol. They are sick of hearing that it's the end of the earth if X thing happens. People did live through 4 years of Donald Trump and came out the other side of it.
Walt started their weird narrative, and it's good.
Don't feel that he's the existential
let's be
threat.
real. It's not Waltz that started it. I would say that myself, the Chapo boys, like, we've been saying this for fucking years. And Waltz is the guy who, the first time I've seen like a Democrat in a position of power actually utilize that language and deploy it against the Republican
Trump
Party.
Supporter. The late, great
We have
Hannibal
literally,
Lecter
like, normal
doesn't
people that
resonate.
are not in the Democratic Party have been saying this for quite some time.
Batteries. Like, Donald Trump is not a normal human, and I guess it's only Jesse that is normal in all of this.
Should we like pull up the tapes of Kamala Harris and
but you can
space
play that
and
game.
weird? I mean, I just think that it's
You want to talk batteries?
But if you-
I mean, you guys
I
spent
don't wanna talk
$10
batteries.
trillion.
I wanna-
You installed 8. That's weird.
What I want to talk
That's
about
not what's weird.
is that
That's weird.
Whatever the strategy is now, It is.
No, weird is like you saying they brought Dylan to the White House and assuming that people know what that is, and some people will know what that is. We know what that is because we're brain rotted. Like I'm clued in on what the fuck these guys talk about on a regular basis. I watch their shit all the time. That's why I know how fucking weird the Republicans are. Bro just name dropped a singular trans TikToker from 8 months ago by her first name. That's it. Not even like her last name. Just said Dylan in the White House. Okay? And the expectation is that like that's how hyper oh dude.
Mocking
Wait, let's continue.
Christians.
Let's continue.
Supper. Here
Show
we
us how
go.
fucking weird you are more. Show us how weird you are with this culture war shit, dude. Oh, they're mocking Christians by doing artistic demonstrations. We want to ban them? Go ahead. Make my fucking day, dude. Okay? The Republicans forgot that their like worst policy positions are just genuinely fucking gross. And like you're supposed to do dog whistles, dumbass. I think Donald Trump unshackled that to a certain degree, but he at least has like he is telegenic enough and charismatic enough to the base to be able to carry that conversation. But when you guys do it, you do it too analytically. You do it too critically. You do it in a way where you're too nerdy about it. You're doing the Elizabeth Warren style, JD Vance style, Ron DeSantis style, like, let me show you how the sausage is made about the racist process that I go through in order to advocate for the fucking horrifying things that I advocate for. And people, when they see that, when they scratch the surface and see what's underneath it, they go, ew, that's gross. This is why the Democrats are finally calling what Republicans are doing weird. Okay? It's a really good way to you know, basically say you guys are being fucking racist without saying the word, or you're being really transphobic without saying the word. Because if you go, oh, you're transphobic, then it alludes to the hysterical, like blue-haired social justice warrior tropes. But when you just say it's weird, you're like a normal person, and many other normal people also feel this way, right? And it's a positive way to reframe the conversation. It's positive for the Democrats. It's a strong way to reframe the conversation without immediately being like, ooh, that's racist. Ooh, that's bigoted. Ooh, that's whatever. You're disarming them because there's a immediate, you know, multiple centuries backed retort for when someone says you're racist. White people hate being called racist, okay? Especially when they have racist ass opinions. They think it's worse than being, they think it's certainly worse than saying the N-word, right? But when you say they're being weird, it's a little different. It's new. They're like, wait, maybe I also kind of feel like these guys are being gross. Even if they technically agree with the broader ideological positions, this is what I've been trying to fucking explain to people. There is a level of permissible misogyny and permissible racism, right, that is broadly popular in the Republican Party's base of support. That's why Lee Atwater talked about not being able to say the N-word post-civil rights movement and changing the discourse around other things, policy positions that basically dog whistle, that put black people on a worse position overall that white people will definitely vote on. These guys unshackled the dog whistles. They're doing bullhorns. And yeah, Trump to a certain degree is good at making that work, especially with respect to like immigration, especially when there isn't a solid counter narrative on that immigration front, then they can get away with it. But on these other issues, especially on abortion, especially on issues that pertain to women's bodily autonomy, the moment that you come across as misogynistic, the moment that you come across like you're restrictive on what women want to do, the moment that you lean into the Handmaid's Tale or Handmaid's Tale, whatever the fuck it's called, the Handmaid's Tale narrative, and say, no, we do want to do that, you're basically fucking making the rest of the country looking
criticized. Paris 2024 spokesperson apologized, saying they didn't mean to offend anyone. Dana, there's no way they could have watched the rehearsal and thought, this will be perfect.
You mean
for
they
the
didn't
Olympics.
watch that and go, wow, this is weird?
Yeah, probably not.
That's the thing. I also just don't like it that it took away from all the athletes. They they've worked so hard their whole lives for this moment. If you think back to the London Olympics, they drew upon, remember they had the Queen parachuting into the opening ceremony with James Bond. They had a Spice Girls reunion. They had Mr. Bean. They had Chariots of Fire. The French have a rich history to draw on. They just didn't use it.
And even Russia and...
Yeah, calling everything woke is also weird. Saying like, oh, they're doing gender. Democrats are doing gender. Democrats are doing woke. Woke culture has ruined society. They're doing gender. Like, yeah, this shit is weird, bro. It's art. Like, stay in your fucking lane. You know what I mean?
Okay, right. You should take in some of that culture. I mean, listen, am I really shocked that
like no normal person is going to watch this, or no fucking right-wing person is going to watch this and be like, well, my takeaway from this is that it's awesome. Of course they're not. It's just art. It's not supposed to be for you. It's not supposed to be like this like fascist depiction or fascist understanding of art that is supposed to be like completely shackled and completely restricted and whatever the fuck. This is not politics. No matter how hard these dipshits try to turn it into politics, it's not, okay?
It was a spectacle for sure. I watched it. I was very excited by the whole thing. I mean, the Marie Antoinette thing was incredible. It was so fun. Mocking, no one?
Right. Nothing like beheaded.
I missed that part.
Nothing like a royal being beheaded to lift you up. Judge?
Defending Marie Antoinette? What the fuck?
Camaraderie and, how we're all basically in this together. I mean, they're tone deaf. They insulted 2 billion Christians, okay? And, you would think.
Boo, woke. This is like SJW shit. This is real cancel culture. Conservatives love doing this.
And they ended up
killing you insulted conservatives. Nobody gives a fuck. Okay? Nobody cares. Oh, you're insulting me.
Because they know
I'm
what
Judge
happens.
Janine Perot.
Christians
You're
cheek.
insulting
They're the ones that are
Christians. Don't
sabotaging
do it.
the Olympics. It's
Right.
not the Christians.
4 rail lines blown up. We
I'm
still don't know
so
what's behind it.
offended as a
The Father's one
Christian.
more thing. I know.
Damn, they have so many fucking ad breaks, dude. They're way worse than me at the top of the hour. At least I only serve you a 3-minute ad break at the top of the motherfucking hour. These guys literally keep doing every 3 minutes. They keep doing an ad break. You get one ad break with me at the top of the hour, one secret one in the middle of the hour, and honestly, you can avoid it by subscribing. Think about how much better that shit is. CPAP support group, they know their fan base. Paris Olympics organizers say sorry for offense, but insists the opening ceremony did not depict the Last Supper. Who gives a shit? The interpretation of the Greek god Dionysus makes us aware of the absurdity of violence between human beings. Like, who cares about this? What the fuck is wrong with you? I think we should do that a lot more. Like, I think I do it all the time. People get very mad at me. Like, even remember, one of the conversations that I used to have with right-wing conservatives, including with Christian Walker before he turned woke, was when he just got like real fucking gross about trans people. And my first instinct in that moment was to be like, why do you care? Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you being fucking weird? Why are you like ruining the vibes? You know what I mean? He's woke now? Not necessarily. He's kind of woke now. Not all the way, but he's a little woke now. Did you guys not know this? And people got mad at me. Remember the famous like the famous Catboy yelling sequence happened as a consequence of that, because people, specifically very sweaty debate lords online, interpreted my my conversation with Christian in a very negative fashion, where they were like, oh, you're getting owned by him because you were calling out how fucking like weird he was about like bringing up trans people for no fucking reason. But that was, no, wasn't Cowboy before that? No, that's after. If you look back, if you go back and watch that debate without like the weird framing from, people like Destiny or Vosh, you will literally see what I was doing there. You will see what I was attempting to do there. That messaging is successful for a broader audience. Okay? Habibi, this is disrespectful to Christians. Why defend it? What? First of all, I don't give a fuck. Okay? That's number one. Number two, this has nothing to do with Christians anyway. Shut the fuck up. It's a scene depicting Dionysus, the Greek god of wine. It's not the Last Supper. What the fuck do you mean? What is this shit? Christians don't give a shit broadly about this stuff either. It's like right-wing losers who care. Anyway, do you understand though? When I had a conversation with Christian Walker and he like started chirping about trans people and like really fucked the vibes up, one of the first things I did was to immediately be like, why do you care about this so much? You care about this more. And you've heard me say this time and time again. You care about trans people as a transphobic person more than trans people do. You constantly have it in your fucking mind. Okay? You constantly have trans on the mind. That's like literally the only thing you talk about and the only thing you think about. And you're tapped into like any movement happening in the trans space when they are just, they're marginal. Like they're literally such a minuscule percentage of the population, and you're constantly fucking attacking them non-stop. And to me, that's just odd. That's an odd thing to do, especially when you're like trying to hit that on the angle of like, you know, sports, like athletes, like high school athletes and shit like that. This is not a thing that you would ever personally bring up in any other circumstance. As a matter of fact, most people that do that are the same people that make fun of women's sports. And we saw that with Brittany Griner, for example. And I think it's good to just, yeah, it's a very Bill Burr style way to deflect. To just be like, why? Why do you care about this? Like, what does this do to you? Okay? What does this fucking do to you? And the same principle applies here as well. The same principle applies here as well. Why the fuck are you so mad? It's just, it's art, dude. It has nothing to do with you. You know, look away. Turn the fucking TV off if you're that butthurt. Okay? It's not even about you. This has nothing to do with Christianity in general. And you're just being really sweaty for no fucking reason. And you're trying to be controlling for no fucking reason. Americans despise that shit. Okay? They despise moralizing, and they despise people who are what? Iran is some of the French ambassador, the offensive representation of Jesus Christ during the Olympic ceremony. Proof this is a right-wing issue. Iran is some of the French ambassador. Yeah. Maybe the MAGA, maybe that's why like MAGA cons, MAGA conservatives, or sorry, MAGA communists will choose to be angry about this as well. That's another great take, actually. AHX introvert. When a trans person is murdered, it gets wide news coverage. Most normal people look at that and go, wow, that's bad. Not like right-wing weirdos who celebrate the murder. The hyperfixation on trans people just turns normies off. They don't care and have other more important things to deal with. Exactly. Exactly. That is actually a phenomenal distinction to make between someone who is like so locked in on insane right-wing sentiment in an echo chamber versus like the average right-winger. That's why in terms of the trans issue, I always talk about like how the normative position in society broadly is that most people are definitely transphobic, right? And everyone knows this. Trans people know this. Trans people themselves have internalized transphobia before they come to terms with their gender, right? Like it's a very normal thing. It's unfortunate, but it is the reality, right? But most people also simultaneously are not constantly fucking thinking about trans people because they're like, why the fuck would you do that? Like, why would you do that? Why would you regularly be like, what are trans people up to? And then they also like weirdly deify trans people where they're like, trans people are like the best athletes of all time. They're so fucking good. They're so fucking good. They're so good at being athletes. And that's why we have to deal with them. We have to deal with them. Everyone can be trans at any given moment. And it's like, dude, you just broke your own brain. Like, why did you do this to yourself? Just let people live, you know? Be fucking normal. And once that advocacy, once those opinions turn into like a legislative agenda, then comes restrictive legislation, like anti-trans legislation that was born out of the trans panic in these past 4 years at the state legislatures, like in places like Ohio, where they started doing like penis inspection day, right? Which hasn't been really implemented as far as I understand, but like was a bill that they passed. That kind of shit actually harms cis girls significantly more than trans girls. Okay? Like, obviously, it has an outsized way of hurting trans people. That's the whole point. But there's like fucking 4 trans people that are competing in high school athletic competitions. There are a fuck ton of cis girls that are participating in it, and now they get to do penis inspection day. And this is something that Republicans don't comprehend or think about until it happens. It's just like the fucking abortion conversation. Republicans were on board. They thought that this would not harm them Okay? They never comprehended a world in which, like, maybe their daughter might need to get a fucking abortion, or their wife might need to get an abortion after trying to carry a pregnancy to term, but having an ectopic pregnancy. And now that shit is restricted, and doctors are too scared to offer this medical service. All of a sudden, it becomes your fucking problem. That problem comes to your goddamn doorstep, and now you're like, oh, fuck. Who would have thought that at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break? Who would have thought? Before you know it, you're staring down the barrel of that 3-minute ad break, and you're thinking to yourself, maybe I should have. Oh, did I already serve it? I didn't. I forgot to serve it. So I'm going to serve it now. I guess I segued it, and I forgot. I forgot to run it, so I'm running it now. Double baited. Here's the 3-minute ad break now.
And they haven't had the ability, like, for instance, Jazz Jennings can never have kids. Jazz Jennings also, and this probably part of your studies, can't actually feel any sexual feeling of any kind.
Do you have any idea how weird this sounds right now? Like, why are you obsessing with a stranger's genital pleasure? That's so weird. That's so bizarre.
That was very weird yourself.
You guys are all weird.
No. So I'm talking about adults who engage in activities, which is a large portion of the global economy, whether you like it or not.
Sure.
Sex sells, they say. And when I say this person will never have this ability, you go, how weird is that?
It's weird for you to fixate on a stranger's genital pleasure. That's
Yeah, it is. Dude, I've been riding this fucking wave. I've been riding this wave for years. I'm so glad that this is becoming more prominent in terms of like how to deal with these fucking freaks. Oh, it's so good. He's like, no, you're weird. It's normal to care about someone's genital pleasures. Go ahead, dude. Make that argument. Make that the most prominent display for your fucking campaigning. Okay? Go ahead. Double down on that shit. Double down on that shit. Here it is. There it is.
Zeroed in on a very...
Like, the question I used to ask Republicans in the first couple of years of the Trump administration, the trans administration. See, I got trans on the mind. The first couple of years in the Trump administration, I would ask Republicans all the time. Back then, I used to debate them, right? Like on Discord. One of the questions I would ask them is like, have you seen tangible benefits to your life now that Trump is in office? Or do you still have the same old material problems? Okay? Did the pothole down the road get fixed? Did life become more affordable? Do you feel like you make more money now? No, none of those things changed. They just duped you into voting for them by, bringing up this narrative. That's it. That's it. That's literally it. That's all they do. And many people actually came to terms with that reality. They recognized it. They were like, all right, well, yeah, maybe a lot of the stuff that actually impacts my life are not being changed, because Republicans use that as a previously very successful mechanism, and now increasingly becoming less successful mechanism to get voters to vote for them. Okay? If you laser in on this shit, ironically enough, they could just take advantage of like the unaffordability crisis and Biden inflation, but they still can't stop themselves from fucking leaning on this dumb shit. Okay? They cannot stop themselves from just being like, no, we got to fucking eviscerate every trans people. It's like, it's 0.01% of the population, dude. Like, what do you think you're going to do if you, quote unquote, deal with it? If you, in the words of Michael Knowles, eradicate transgenderism? Like, what do you get in that? What do you get in that situation? You get nothing. Your life didn't change. You just killed a bunch of trans people. Okay. Like, do you understand? It's fucking insane. Yeah, you got dead family members and a bunch of people who are upset. You just did something unimaginably cruel and unimaginably immoral, unimaginably violent, and you got no benefit. You're just doing harm for no reason.
Very effective attack vector against Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
Oh, they're going to do that. They're going to keep doing like the fucking trans panic shit.
Will now have to answer for the idea that that teachers in California are not allowed to tell parents when their kids are medically transitioning. So let's pretend you are a 6th grade teacher in Orange County, California, in Huntington Beach, California. You're a 6th grade teacher, and a kid begins to identify as Steve instead of Susie. As a 6th grade teacher in Huntington Beach, California, you are not allowed to call up the parent. You are not allowed to notify the parent. This is pure, unadulterated Marxism.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie. If the parent is oblivious to their children being trans, like, they're bad fucking parents. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, what do you mean? State interference must occur here. Like, no, it's like, it's supposed to be protective. Good luck explaining that to, like, obviously the broadest subsects of American population. You can't. But, like, what the fuck are we talking about? Did he say Marxism? Yeah, this is a fundamental plank of Marxism.
Damn, this guy's good.